All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig in a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er intel update from down in Santa Clara the last couple days, and we'll be down there again later today. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things we've learned when we were down in Santa Clara hanging out around the Niners, doing all their press stuff, going into the locker room, talking to some of the players. First of all, let me just talk about general vibe. The general vibe, and of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them the Krug sent you. Get the brisket chili, get the pulled pork. It's all great. Pig and a Pickle. And we're also brought to you by Marin Auto Glass. Check them out, marinautoglass.com. And this video brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use that promo code Krug, and they will match you up to your first $100. That's Krug, K-R-U-E-G. And thanks to all of them for being sponsors of the Krug Show. All right, first, kind of the overall theme of the 49ers. There is a business as usual, quiet confidence about the 49ers this week. They're not overly confident in thinking that the Packers can't beat them. They know the Packers absolutely can beat them. They just watched Green Bay go into Dallas and knock off the Cowboys and do it in impressive fashion. So there is proper respect for their opponent. Lots of respect for Jordan Love. Lots of respect for Aaron Jones. Lots of respect for that Packers offensive line. Those young receivers have impressed the 49ers for sure. The Packers D-line, very, very impressive. They're aware of the threat that is represented by the Green Bay Packers. And yet, the Niners are loose. They are. I mean, they're playing basketball in their room. They're talking trash to each other. It's a lively room. I would say Diamador Lenore came across as the most confident when he said, I asked him about last year's playoff experience, and he's like, yeah, that is the thing that sticks with us. And that is in the back of our head. That's why we're not going to lose. That's what his statement was. And then listening to Trent Williams talk yesterday, he's like, hey, when you lose the way that we lost and we got so close to going to the Super Bowl, you just want to rapid fire speed through the regular season and get back to this point where you can, prove it in the playoffs. So I think the 49ers feel like they were the best team in the NFL last year and that they've got something to prove. And it kind of reminds me, if there was, these are different teams, different times, but it reminds me an awful lot of the 49ers in 1984, where they got hosed in the 1983 NFC title game with two really, really bad calls against the Redskins at the time at RFK Stadium. And they felt like they were the best team in football in 1983. And they didn't win this. They didn't go to the Super Bowl, and obviously they didn't win it. And they came back in 1984 just hell-bent with that lasting memory. And there's just so many guys who got on that plane last year coming back from Philly unfulfilled, vowing to themselves that if they get this opportunity again, they're going to kick that door down, and they're not going to waste their opportunity. So I expect the 49ers to fire a big, big effort on Saturday night against the Packers, because this is where the road to the Super Bowl officially starts. You win and you move on to the NFC title game, and if you lose, you go home and it's season over. And it's that level of urgency that they bring into this game. So overall, I think mentally they're in a really, really good spot. As far as some intel from around the room, the Niners announced they've signed Austin Bryant to the team's practice squad and released Jeremy McNichols. I talked to Austin Bryant yesterday. He's never played in a playoff game, but he is eager to get in there. And he hasn't been told if he's going to be up, or if he's up, how many snaps he's going to get, but he's ready. And, absolutely. The one thing he told me was that, I haven't played the full year, so my body's really, really fresh. And this time of year, adding a fresh body or two is a good thing. And so Austin Bryant could be a factor, guys, because he is been sitting around. I mean, he has not played 20 consecutive weeks of football. So he's fresh, and he's a veteran, and he's got talent. He's got long arms, and he can rush the passer. So Austin Bryant could very well be up on game day, and he could have an impact in this game. Dre Greenlaw. I talked to Steve Wilkes about Dre Greenlaw. Two of the better players on the Packers are Kraft and Musgrave, the two big tight ends that are really young players. They're both rookies. And Greenlaw and Logan Ryan are probably going to be, in charge of defending those guys. And Greenlaw did not practice on Wednesday, and Logan Ryan did not fully practice on Wednesday. Ryan's got a groin injury. Greenlaw's got an Achilles. I asked Steve Wilkes about both, and he said, Greenlaw, they got to protect Greenlaw from himself, which is what I've been saying. He's the guy only knows one speed, and that's why they didn't play him against the Rams in Week 18. And he says Wilkes says he looks great at practice and he should be ready to go. I'll be at practice today. I'll put my eyes on it for myself, and I'll give you an idea later today of what he looks like running around out there. But according to Steve, Greenlaw's ready. I asked him about Jair Brown versus Logan Ryan. I think they want to keep that a secret. He's got confidence in both. Ryan's played in multiple Super Bowls. He's the veteran. The moment's not going to be too big for him. But at the same time, Jair Brown's a better player at this point. He's younger, faster, stronger against the run, and he's coming off the knee sprain. I think that's going to be a game-time decision, and I expect both of them to suit up and both of them to play. Who starts, who plays more snaps, that's a to be determined situation. I talked to George Odom yesterday in the locker room briefly. I'm going to do an interview with him today, hopefully. He's no longer wearing the blue non-contact jersey at practice, and I think he's a go. And he could be a major factor for the 49ers on special teams because Odom is one of the best special teamers and a true tone setter in his own right. Cleveland Farrell missed practice. He's the only active player to really not go, and he's not going to go in this game. So there'll be no Clee. They're going to have to step it up with either Robert Beal, Austin Bryant. One of those guys is going to have to step up. It was interesting. Devontae Wyatt on Brock Purdy said, man, when D linemen get pressure, he's throwing, he'll throw you an interception. It's a guarantee we'll get a turnover. And, Purdy did lead the NFL in passer rating when pressured. So we'll see how that goes. And I think Brock's in a good frame of mind. He worked hard during the bye week. He understands that this is, he's a far better player today than he was even in last year's playoffs when he won 2 playoff games as a rookie. He's just totally a different player right now. I think he's going to play a really strong game. Danny Gray was not at practice on Wednesday, and that was the last day to activate him. So people asking about Danny Gray, you need not ask any longer. He goes back to injured reserve, and his season is officially done. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other notes that I think are kind of interesting. One is the 49ers may have a major advantage when they empty the formation. And when people say when they go with empty, well, what is empty? For those of you who are not football people, it's when you have no backs in the backfield, no fullback, no halfback. You empty the backfield. Brock Purdy had 89 dropbacks during the regular season when the 49ers had what we would call an empty formation. That's when the running back is split out, flexed out as a wide receiver, and the quarterback standing there all by himself. Purdy's completion percentage was lower than usual. He only completes 63% in empty formations, but he averaged an 11.2 yards per attempt. So this formation with the Niners getting all 5 eligibles out in the pattern makes the Niners almost borderline unguardable. And another benefit of the empty formation is it's a lot of times the defenders have their backs turned, which leads to yards after the catch, lots of yak yardage. They're now going up against the Packers defense that was 8th worst in the NFL in yards allowed and yards per attempt against empty formations. So expect Shanahan to dial up a handful or more of empty formations and put a lot of pressure on Green Bay. And how does Green Bay defend that? I think that's going to be something to watch for. The Cowboys did this, but they didn't do it till the third quarter. And at that point, they were down 20 points and the game was done. Another area where the Packers really struggle is defending tight ends. They're 27th in DVOA guarding tight ends. Kittle's averaging 5 catches and 87 yards per game in home games. He has at least 67 receiving yards in every home game outside of one. Green Bay, 23rd in quarterback rating against tight ends this season. So they've allowed the 39th most yards per attempt. if you look at it, George Kittle's very likely to have a 100-yard day. He could really go off in this situation. If you look at their linebackers do not, they allow a high percentage reception percentage against them. Quay Walker, not a great player in coverage. Devondre Campbell, not a great player in coverage. Expect Kyle Shanahan to isolate those linebackers in space against a weapon and make big plays. I think there's a lot of big plays to be had. Also, Carrington Valentine, the rookie corner who's starting opposite Jair Alexander. He's big and he's athletic, but he was a 7th-round pick. He allowed 11.6 yards per reception this season on 70 targets. So good luck covering Ayuk, good luck covering Debo with Shanahan calling the plays. That's going to be a major advantage, Niners. Penalties could be a major factor in this game, by the way, as well. It's an interesting crew. It's Alex Kemp's crew, and has drawn the Niners assignment. He's thrown 214 penalties in 17 games, 12.6 penalties a game. That's the most of any crew officiating in the playoffs this year. So expect the flags to fly. So he ref 2 Niner games. Week 1 against the Steelers, they had 11 penalties for 85 yards. And then week 13 against the Eagles, they were flagged 5 times for 47 yards. So, expect penalties. That's one. I didn't get a chance yesterday, but I will today to ask some of the offensive linemen their thoughts on Mark Chmura's tasteless remark that it might be in the Packers' best interest to trade a personal foul for a good lick on Brock Purdy. Chmura's exact quote was a 15-yard penalty, and I don't condone this, but I kind of do in the playoffs. Well, either you do or you don't, and obviously he does. He says a 15-yard penalty for a late hit on Brock Purdy is not a bad thing as long as it's worth it. Sometimes a 15-yard penalty is worth it early in the game if you knock the living crap out of a guy. So get ready for a first quarter late hit. At least be prepared that the Packers may try to take a cheap shot on Brock Purdy. Not that Chmura controls their locker room, but he's at least put that thought out in the ether. I think for the 49ers, the game plan is real simple. By the way, Trent Williams indicated that he is going to return for another season. He's coming back next year. That came out yesterday. He told Eric Branch that he will be returning in 2024. But I think the 49er game plan in this game's got to be real simple. Play complementary football and keep Green Bay's offense on the sideline. How do you do that? You run the hell out of the football. You control the ball. You control the time of possession. You wear down their defense. You run it against them. 4 different games this year, their opponent has run for 200 yards against Green Bay's defense. So be number 5. Run for 200 yards against this defense. If you want to air it out and have all kinds of, high risk passing plays and take your chances and let it all hang out, that's fine. But get up 7, get up 10. Have control of the game. I would come out with a conservative, punch them in the mouth, roll downhill kind of a game plan, and just make them defend the run in every way imaginable. End arounds to Debo, toss plays, toss plays away from the action. Everything, every misdirection run play you could come up with. Run with power, run to the edges, fake to the edges and run the middle. Play action passes, short to in real defined areas, high percentage throws. Don't take chances with the football until you have a nice lead. Build a lead on these guys, make them play run defense, and then, throw the kitchen sink at them. As I said, Trent is coming back. He was asked yesterday. He said, oh, yeah, 100% whether he plans to return for 2024. He's one of only 4 offensive tackles to earn 11 Pro Bowl nods. The others are Munoz, Ogden, and Rofe. One more, and he'll stand alone at that position. He may be the best left tackle that ever played. I personally would go with Walter Jones, who I think was the best I've ever seen. Munoz, Anthony Munoz was kind of the standard for the position throughout the 1980s. But to me, Trent is as big and as athletic as any of them. The key matchup in this thing. And we talked to Nick Bosa, and he said, the Packer tackles are really good blocking against the run. He hadn't really studied them too much as pass protectors, or at least that's what he said. The Packers did a really good job against the Cowboys in the last game of making Micah Parsons a non-factor. He only had 3 total pressures and 19 pass rush opportunities. It was his 3rd lowest pressure total of the season. So Nick Bosa, who led the Niners this year with 95 pressures, Chase Young, who had 28 pressures with the 49ers in 9 games. These guys have got to play, and they've got to play big. They've got to win off the edge. They've got to put pressure on Jordan Love. Jordan Love has to feel the Niners defensive line, or it's going to be a long day. That young kid's in a great rhythm, and he has to feel the Niner pressure. You're going to see a lot of pre-snap motion in this game from both teams. The Niners use a lot of pre-snap motion. The Packers do as well. They use pre-snap motion at the highest rate in the league. Across the formation, making you adjust, sometimes making you adjust seconds before the snap of the ball. The 49ers are probably going to benefit from the fact that the Packers are without their safety, Rudy Ford, who's had a hamstring injury. He was placed on IR on January the 6th. That's a loss for them. But once again, the game plan in this game's got to be run the freaking ball. The Packers' run defense is 28th during the regular season. They allowed 4.4 yards per carry. Christian McCaffrey had the look of seriousness on his face this week. I mean, very seriousness. Very serious. In fact, McCaffrey said, it's been urgency since OTAs. And this is a guy who played the OTAs, guys. If you were there, you know, and if you saw him in camp, you kind of know. Christian McCaffrey was going at a breakneck speed from day one of OTAs. He was the tone setter for this season, in my opinion. He goes, it's been urgency since OTAs. That's how we've handled ourselves this entire time. He definitely has, and he set the tone. Put the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands. He may be a Hall of Fame type player, and he's had a rest. Now, he's been dinged up late in the year, but he's gotten some rest. Put the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands and run your way into the NFC Championship game. That would be my plan. That absolutely would be the plan. So there you go. There's a lot of the intel. Steve Wilkes would not give away any of the game plan other than to say that, I asked him a little bit about Jordan Love and his propensity to, at the top of his drop, kind of drift. And he compared it to Rodgers. I would compare it to Favre. The 49ers have to get in his face and make him feel the pressure. The other thing that's absolutely integral in this matchup defensively, your rush and your coverage have to be tied together. If you put a lot of heat on Love and force the ball out quick, your coverage has got to be really, really tight, and it's got to be coordinated with your rush. Your cover guys have to know what's happening up front. This is a big game for Fred Warner and for Dre Greenlaw. Those two guys on the second level have to really knock the snot out of Aaron Jones, stop his running, and hit those tight ends repeatedly. They're big tight ends with big catch radiuses, but there's more physical tight ends than these guys. You can hit them hard, and you can separate them from the football. The NFL is calling the helmet-to-helmet stuff, so you can't go helmet to helmet. But you can't, as far as the way you hit receivers, you can't really hit receivers the same way you used to. But, man, that doesn't count for running backs, and that doesn't count for tight ends. Blow those guys up with the intent to separate them from the football. Taking care of the football is going to be the name of the game. If the 49ers are -1 on the turnover table, this game's going to be close. If they're -2 or -3, they're going to lose. Respect your opponent and respect how good they are offensively. This is going to be a monumental challenge for the Niner defense, and I really think the key to this game is you got to play complementary ball. You got to dominate the time of possession. You got to run the ball more than Kyle Shanahan normally runs it. You got to keep the ball out of Jordan Love's hands. The best way to disrupt his rhythm is to not let him touch the ball a lot early in the game. Make him stand there for 25 minutes as you're driving the ball down the field slowly and methodically. When you get in the red zone, you got to get 6. You can't settle for 3. Don't put this in the hands of Jake Moody. You got a rookie kicker who didn't finish the year on a particularly strong note. If you're Brock Purdy, you got to think touchdowns in the red zone. Not that he doesn't, but there's got to be some urgency to touchdowns in the red zone. And if you're Kyle Shanahan and you get to 4th down, you got to go for it. You got to go for it. Inside of 4th and 5, you got to go for it unless you're backed up inside your 30. So there you go. There's a little breakdown from Ninerland, a little thoughts of some of the players, a little thoughts on some of the things I've observed. I'll be down there today. Today's Thursday. I'll be down there for practice and more open locker room. And then tonight, Jesse and Vish and I will go live. I'll do another video later today recapping practice. So have a great day. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. By the way, yesterday I'm walking into the auditorium and a guy's walking out, just a Niner employee walking down the corridor, and he goes, Krug, and he flips his phone around, and he's watching a video that I had cut 30 minutes earlier. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the people supporting these videos and all this information and this intel. I'm glad that you appreciate my coverage. I appreciate every single one of you guys. And thanks to all of you for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.